the kid you hear playing the piano. He's not mine. On top of the 2 weekly piano lessons and finger yoga, I give my son Smarty Pants vitamins to support his brain health because while I'm supposed to say it's not a competition, of course it's a f***ing competition. Choose Smarty Pants vitamins to support your kid's brain health and help them master whatever their chopsticks may be. Shop on Amazon, smartypantsvitamins.com, or at Target today.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Unfiltered discussions. Unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Welcome to The Last Show. I'm Caitlin Green, filling in for David Cooper. Here's what you'll learn on tonight's program. Why everyone, especially single people, needs a signature dish, and adding hot dogs to craft dinner does not count. We'll decode the dating term graysexual, and you'll also hear about the rare, possibly historic event where a tech CEO said something in support of people over AI. And for parents, an important warning, what you need to know about Roblox and chatbots before your kids get in too deep. And joining me now to discuss every single last person on Earth's favorite topic, in my opinion, food. I am joined by food influencer, expert home cook, whose skills in the kitchen and good looks, which will go unappreciated on radio, but I digress, made him a contestant on America's Test Kitchen. Please welcome Robbie Guevarra. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. This is so fun. Oh my God, thank you for acknowledging me that I don't have a face for radio.
You don't. You have a face for TV, and that's why you were on TV. Not only on TV cooking, but you were actually on one of my favorite places in the whole wide world, Watch What Happens Live, with none other than the Andy Cohen. You were a bartender in the clubhouse.
I was a bartender, and believe it or not, they get you. I was wasted on that segment. Because you have you get 2 drinks while you get ready.
Yeah.
The car picks you up. You wait in the dressing room. They give you 3 drinks, and then you get on the set. You're at the bar, and every commercial break, which is 3, they fill you a new drink. So you're just like, at that point, you're just like, what is time? What is this drink? What is that drink?
God.
And I think by the end of it, I had maybe about 7 martinis.
Okay. So do you think when people go on Watch What Happens Live, they're all hammered? Is that kind of the vibe?
Yeah.
All right. That's good context to have.
I think if you're a guest, if you're like the guest of honor, like you're not drinking because you have to answer and sit and like do questions. But if you're a bartender, they're maybe speaking to you twice. You have 5 seconds to like wave in the camera and look pretty.
Mm-hmm.
But like you're not really doing anything. So you're just kind of like, you think you're on camera because there's there's Video Village right behind you, and like you just feel the energy. So you're just like, you feel that you're on camera, but you start drinking, and then one sip turns into your 7th one, and then you're 7 drinks deep.
Do you feel like being drunk on Bravo helped you or hindered you?
In what, my future?
No, in your performance.
I mean, I thought I did great. As you see the segment, I slowly start to like slump down. like by the time they filmed I think it's like the exclusive for like YouTube or Twitter or whatever, like the after show, I'm like leaning on the bar, just like waving. And like before, I'm worried about my back, I'm worried about my posture and like all that stuff. But
several martinis later, not a top priority.
7, honestly, 7.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Now we know how housewives feel.
I think it's a little different now because of like the reality reckoning. Like I think like when you watch like the last Roni like reunion, like you saw that they were like, okay, we're not drinking, we're not allowed to drink. Like I think that's a big thing. But I think that Watch What Happens Live, it's like late night, right? Like it's a drinking environment. I don't know.
So you can kind of get away with it. And when you were on Watch What Happens Live, you were there to promote some pop-up dinners that you do. And I love this idea so much. They are called boy dinners. And please explain for our listeners what Boy Dinner is all about.
Yeah, so Boy Dinner is, one, my culinary story, and two, sort of like the best way to like kind of put my dating life into like some sort of memoir or shared experience. So it's my pop-up series where I cook food that I've made for my ex-boyfriends or ex-lovers or ex-man, anything like any sort of man, whether or not they've been a boyfriend or a relationship, a quick bang or whatever. And I usually have cooked for that person or cooked for all those types of people. So I put them all on a menu, all my boys on one menu, and I put their first name also to kind of like, it's more of like a commemoration of them. I mean, they're not dead, right? But like, it's more to like celebrate the time that we had together versus like me dragging them. I think like it's a little tongue in cheek, but it's like, it's mainly about like, it's like really just the message of just like, just because this person's not here any longer doesn't mean like all the things you've done for them go to waste. Like, and I think that's something that's like lost in dating, or like your ex is immediately a villain and they just are the most hated person. And I'm just like, let's not do that. I think like that, like, let's like, I think when you lose someone, there's a instinct to like really hate on that person, but like instead, like, let's love out. And I think that's what Boy Dinner is. So it's like, it's just like a way for me to like have a shared experience with other people about my kooky, fun, Carrie Bradshaw-esque dating life. It's like if Carrie Bradshaw knew how to cook, this is what she would do.
That is, okay, that's perfect. And I think that it is kind of a shame that many people sort of malign their exes to the point where they can't really reflect on the relationship and enjoy it and remember the good things, perhaps because it's too painful for them. Who knows why? But I think that when I do look back on my past relationships, food is always a huge part of it. You probably have restaurants that you love to go to. You probably have drinks that you shared. You have, important commemorative meals. You've got holidays together. And something that I think most people should really hone their skills at is a signature dish. And this isn't just in the world of dating. This could be for friends and family, especially if you're a parent, for, you're creating those kind of memories for a kid. So I love this idea because I think that I don't know that I kind of have one signature dish. I'm pretty good with penne alla vodka. Like I can do a good alla vodka sauce. Actually, I prefer rigatoni really. But I think that is a real skill to have, and it makes for a very appealing partner. It's hot when someone knows how to cook.
Yeah. I mean, I remember this like Drew Barrymore interview when she was on Ellen, and she like made this like spicy harissa pasta, and she like, it was like her like foray into cooking and the first time she's ever cooked on TV. And she was like, I want to come up as if I'm like, you walk into my apartment and I'm just cooking and I'm having a glass of wine and it's just like this like sexy experience. That was like, I swear I was in like high school when I saw that interview, and it's like that has never left me. And I just was like, oh, like when I'm older, like and like sort of like the reason why I started Boy Dinner was because I used to cook for guys as a first date thing. Like, because it was two things. It was like, one, if you thought that was weird, I'm like, you're not for me. And two, it was like more about like self-control. Like, how can I control the environment, what we're eating, what we're listening to, and all those things that kind of decenter you at a date. I'm just like, how can is there a way I can control every aspect of the experience? And I'm like, oh, if I cook for them and invite them over, because it's like, it already puts you on this like pedestal.
Yes.
And like at the end of the day, you kind of just want to go home with them anyway. So it's just like, I'm like,
They're like, cut to the chase.
Let's just cut to the chase. And like, like if you brought them over and you're just like, wow, this guy sucks, I'm like, that's on you.
Yeah.
Like that's a you problem. You didn't do enough discovery. You didn't do enough in like the intro phase where you're like texting, where you like your instincts are off. You need to like really ask more questions and get really to the root of like, do I know this person? Let me get to know this person. And by the time they're over, like you should have a pretty good idea of who they are.
In the world of dating, it is very intimate. It creates an immediate sense of intimacy. And it is a hack because it does get the person over to your place right away. And I remember now very renowned, a chef and one of the stars on The Bear, Matty Matheson.
Yeah.
He had a series for Vice back in the day, and he was in kind of his like dingy little rental apartment here in Parkdale in Toronto. And he had a lasagna that went viral, and it was called a guaranteed to get you laid lasagna.
Yeah.
And I think that any person, man, woman, gay, straight, whoever, if you can have one dish that you can pull out and know that you're going to really impress everybody, you truly are one step closer to disrobing, I think, with that person.
I agree with that. I think there's nothing more sexier when something, like, cooking aside, like when someone does something for you. Where's your bedroom?
Okay. I'm Caitlin Green in for David Cooper, here with food lover, expert, influencer, and cook Robbie Guevarra, whose extensive dining experience also makes him the perfect person to reinforce what you should not do, what you should not order at a restaurant on a date. So we will discuss that when we come back.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contracts. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Prepare to have your mind blown as we delve into the complexities of relationships, explore the cutting edge of science, and celebrate the bizarre and beautiful absurdity of the world around us. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
It's The Last Show. I am Caitlin Green, filling in for David Cooper, and joining me is one of my very favorite people. He is a food expert. He's a fantastic home cook. He is a disarmingly handsome man whose good looks are going underappreciated here in radio. His name is Robbie Guevarra, and he has done a series of pop-up dinners called Boy Dinner, where you talk about meals that you shared with ex-boyfriends, and you put together a menu of meaningful meals that you shared with exes. Well, maybe some ex-flings too, like not necessarily even full relationship status.
It's the whole full spectrum of ex blank.
Ex blank, ex insert relationship status here. So the other thing though is that we often cook at home. I prefer cooking at home. I really love it. I do think it's intimate. I think having that one signature dish in your arsenal, as we discussed in our last segment, is a really important thing to have, and it's a really sexually appealing thing to have, is to be able to cook and do that. But let's be real, many times we're going on a date with somebody, especially a new person, and we're going to go to a restaurant.
Yeah.
And I feel like there are so many things that can go wrong and so much etiquette around dining out. And I've experienced it. I've seen it. I've heard about it from friends. And you, because you're a talented cook, but you also go to a lot of restaurants and you know a lot of chefs and you know a lot of people in this space. So what can you say would be some of your yays and nays for anyone who is going to be going on a date, either with a new person or like a long-standing relationship, or like, hell, even like a potential employer? If you're going for a lunch with someone, there's just things you just don't want to do.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about dates.
Let's stick to dates.
We'll stick to dates. And let's start with don'ts, because as Brené Brown said, like, to talk about something you love, you talk about something that you hate. I hate when, I don't like when people order for me. Like when people are like, oh, we can do this, and then that. Why don't I can take care of the ordering. I'm like, don't tell me what to do. It also assumes that you don't care. And it assumes that and it's like, I understand it as a move. And I'm speaking as a gay man who is interested in another gay men. There are people out there who may love this. But I think when you when people are like, let's order a bottle of wine. I'm like, I don't want wine.
Yeah.
And for sure I don't want a whole bottle.
For sure I don't.
Because that's too much. It's cocktails and maybe a glass of wine. So the ordering for the table, unless there's if we're sharing everything, let's come up with a mutual order that we both love.
Agreed. Avoid assumptions.
Avoid assumptions and avoid telling someone what to do.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think another one is when someone is on a diet, at the date.
Yeah.
Like if we're at a French restaurant and the bread comes and you don't eat the bread. And I'm like, if you don't want to eat the bread because you want to save room, then say that. But like, if you make it known that I'm not eating the bread because I'm not, just it's too much for me right now. Like that's a no-go. Someone who like, and it's like, I feel that way about fries.
Yes.
Like, if you don't eat the fries on the date, like that, like you can't. Then you can't have this. Then the check, and like let's get the check. Like, and then it's over.
Because it's not hot. This is a thing that I constantly say to people is like, and it sounds as though it's an oversimplification, but I do believe so many behaviors around dating just really boils down to whether or not it's hot or not. And when someone is overly sharing about watching their weight, it's just not a great vibe for an early on date. And I want someone who's like, because food is so closely tied to pleasure. When I see someone not able to enjoy the French fries, not able to enjoy the bread, they strike me as someone who's less fun, someone who's perhaps a little bit separated from pleasure. And that just sends signals to my brain that like, maybe this is not going
to be around that.
No, I don't like it.
No.
Yeah.
And like, what else are you withholding yourself from? I think let's think about that as a whole bigger question.
Yeah.
And also, like, why don't you like fries? Like,
who doesn't like fries?
And I'm not asking you to have 10 potatoes. I'm asking you to have a total of 10 fries. Like, it's not gonna move the needle.
Also, if you need to do some extra cardio after, that's on you.
Then that is on you.
You can go do that, but that's really truly none of my business. I wanted half of the fries.
No. It's even the gesture of like, now I'm eating all this food alone and you're just watching me eat this alone.
Yes.
And now like, what else are you going to leave me alone in this? Like, are you going to leave me just like solo? Like this is a relationship is requires two people. Like if you can't have the fries with me on date one, then what else are you going to leave me out in the alone?
Yeah. It's not creating a fun vibe.
On the rain to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think this is a big thing that I have seen in like the last dates I went on, like, when I could think about like the last dates I've been on, like when people get to the day, because mainly it's after a day of work, when people come to the dinner and they complain about their job.
Yeah.
And you're just like, how is your day? And you're just like, oh, work sucks. Work is this. My boss is this. And then I'm like, oh, we're getting our entrees and we're still talking about your job. And it's like, I'm like, because this is not a date. This is now a billable hour.
Yeah.
Like,
yes.
I am now your therapist, and I don't know I have no background. I have like, all I can do is just sit here and nod and say yes. And then I got to ask you what you do. And then I'm like, oh, and then it just like opens up so many questions. It's like, it's negativity. That's what
it is. Negativity. And I mean, I'm married for over 10 years.
You don't want to hear about Kyle's.
I don't want to hear about someone's bad day either, let alone early on. So you really want to like come with your best face forward, your best energy, come with some bits, come with some anecdotes. Like people prepare for a late night interview that lasts 5 minutes. If you were going to go to a date, I would encourage you to view this as your segment on late night and go through some content for yourself. Like have some stuff to talk about. Yeah.
And don't talk about how much you hate your job.
Dad, don't talk about anything negative. Now, I have a do that I want to run by you.
I have a do too. So like, let's get to do's.
We'll get to the do's. I really enjoy when somebody takes the guesswork out of paying the bill. And that is something that I have done in the past, whether it's, for a romantic date or whether or not it's like a group dinner or a family setting. I think that if you know you are going to pay the bill, save everyone from the back and forth of who's taking who and do we split it with the server at the table. If you know you're going to do it and you're comfortable doing it and it's the right time, when you go to the bathroom, pay the bill.
Yeah.
When you go to the bathroom, pull the server aside, pay the bill, come back from the bathroom, and then you don't have to do the, oh no, it's me, oh no, it's you, oh no, it's this, that at the table. If you want to split it, I think that's totally fine.
Fine.
I'm all for 50-50. I don't expect anyone to pay for my dinner all the time. But if they are going to, I want them to do it in advance. And if I'm going to pay for someone else's dinner, I will always pull this move because it makes for a much cleaner exit. And again, when I've had somebody else do that for me, it's hot. It just is.
Yeah. And let's normalize that outside of the restaurant. Let's do that at the gas station. Let's do that at the mall, at the store, at Hermes. Like you want to.
If you were going to do it, do it.
Do it.
Let's not have the back and forth in front of the salesperson or the waiter or the whomever it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think that sleek gesture, and like also like that is a small marble that has hefty weight.
Yep.
Like. I will
absolutely.
I will do anything for you.
Yeah, it's hot. This is hot behavior.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's your do?
And so like similar to like the small marble, big weight, like a lot of weight. And like, hear me out on this. And I know that like we both live in cities that are like technically like like we don't have cars and whatever.
Yeah, for everyone listening, Robbie is located in New York, and I'm in Toronto.
I think when you pick someone up, before the date at their office, at their apartment. If you agree to a location and you say, great, I'll meet you. Do you mind if I pick you up? Let's say your date's at 7:30.
Mhm.
I'll pick you up at your apartment at 6:50. I'll wait outside. Like,
Mhm.
I think it's like, it goes back to like the Mr. Big of it all.
Yes.
It goes back to like, I want to also go and like I want to meet you at like first. I want to like talk, talk, have a conversation
Yeah.
in transit.
Yep.
I want to get to know you. And I think there's just something about that extra level of care that is just so sexy. Someone did it to me one time, and then I did it for someone else like a few times after, and I felt like it was such a pleasant thing. It's sort of
Mhm.
like it's like a dying gesture. It's like people don't write letters anymore. Like, that's something that like that used to happen. That's like
Yeah.
really not a bad thing. And I think that's just something that's just like, wow, that is hot.
It's true. We don't always have to meet there. This segment has been a very important PSA on taking care of people, if only to selfishly have them think that you're hot. Which
And if and if that's all they get out of it, you win.
then why not?
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm Caitlin Green. I'm filling in for David Cooper. Thank you so much for talking to me, Robbie Guevarra. He is a food lover, an expert, an influencer, a cook. You should follow him on Instagram. And please, please bring boy dinner to a city near all of us sometime soon, because I want to go and eat all the meals that you've shared with your exes and your flings.
Thank you.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Learning through play starts with Lego Duplo. With Lego Duplo, toddlers can develop real-life skills while having fun with colorful bricks made just for them. Large, easy to grip, and safe to explore. When children express themselves with Lego Duplo, they build patience, problem-solving, and empathy. See your child learn perseverance and self-expression with everything they imagine and create. Visit lego.com/preschool to learn more.
Keep listening to The Last Show with David Cooper, because the alien invasion can wait. The Last Show with David Cooper.
This is The Last Show with David Cooper, but no, I'm not David. I am Caitlin Green, filling in while he's away on vacation, or whatever he calls a vacation, because he's at Burning Man, and it is certainly not my idea of a vacation. If you've ever wished you could repair your own phone, or had the sinking feeling that you were surrounded by nothing but bots online, you are listening to the right segment, because Carmi Levy is here for another round of It's Time for Technology Time. Thank you for joining me, Carmi.
So great to be with you, Caitlin. Thanks for having me.
Tell me about how I can now repair my own phone, ? I mean, I personally certainly could not repair my own phone, but if I was you, for example, perhaps I could go out and do that.
Yeah, so Apple has introduced two new programs in Canada. One is called Self-Service Repair. The other is the Genuine Parts Distributor Program. And basically, they've been around for a few years elsewhere. We're the 34th country to get it. They first started rolling this out in 2022. And basically what it does is it provides people who own iPhones, iPads, Mac, laptops, or desktop computers another option if they need to fix their device. So normally you would bring it into either an Apple store or an Apple authorized repair outlet. Instead, now, if you want, you can order the parts. You can either buy or rent the tools to open the device safely. You can access repair manuals. You download them. You can watch you can watch videos or access diagnostics, so you can test the device to see exactly what's wrong with it. And then you can actually walk yourself through the repair process. It in terms of dollar, if you think this is going to save you huge amounts of money, it probably won't, because if you add up the cost of the parts and the tool purchase and rental, in some cases, it's even more expensive than it would be if you brought it in. For example, a single battery replacement on an iPhone probably costs you more to fix it yourself than to just bring it to the Apple store and let the geniuses do it. But
To say nothing of the cost of if you break your phone.
yeah, exactly. And that's why I will not be one of those people, because
Okay.
I don't have the confidence. I'm not really mechanically inclined. I'm really great with software, not so great with hardware. So but there are some people who would love to take a crack at opening their device. And for them, it gives them an option. And even if you would never repair your own device, this is also available to repair shops. And we know that repair shops, fix it yourself places, they have been, disappearing over the last number of years. We don't fix things as much as we just buy a new one. And so this moves us back in that direction. So you might see more repair shops opening up because now Apple is providing those resources to them, which in the end, that makes these things more accessible. It also makes repair prices more competitive, potentially costing less. And, I don't have to tell you, we are living in economically challenging times. So stretching the
You
lifespan.
don't say.
Yeah. So if we can stretch the lifespan of our devices a little bit, then, maybe the self-service repair program, which really is a nod to sustainability, will allow us to do that. And I think that's really a good thing. I like choice, even if it isn't really for me, because I'm not I'm way too klutzy to open my device, but for other people, choice is a really good thing. And I think this will set the tone for the rest of the industry. Other hardware makers, other device makers will follow suit with programs just like this one.
The right to repair is a huge issue, and I've seen it pop up more and more. I see it even pop up about farmers, like farmers who use technology on their farms in the U.S. specifically. But I do have to close by asking: were they forced to do this, or did they do this of their own volition?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you read the PR content that they're sharing, obviously it looks like altruism. It isn't. This really is all being driven by laws. So in their right to repair laws in Europe, they're coming to North America. Tech companies are slowly but surely being forced to make sure that they don't stop those who want to fix their devices from doing so, that they provide the resources, that they aren't punitive in sort of the way they manage that aftermarket. Because we've seen that in the agricultural sector. We've certainly seen it in the electronic sector. And this opens it up, and it also makes them more compliant to those laws. So yeah, in a way, they were dragged into it kicking and screaming.
I was just loving when I see it's like Apple launches, and then I think the subtext is because they were forced to.
That's right. But I'm okay with that. I won't hold it against
same.
them, because if it gets consumers to a better place, and if it means that we have more eco-friendly, there's less e-waste, fewer of these noxious devices going into landfill. I think that's really a good thing.
However we get there, I'm happy about it. I just, like you said, I love the initial PR campaign, and then I'm just cynical enough to go like, yeah, but I bet someone made you do this.
Right on. Okay. There's always a between the lines, isn't there?
There's something there. The AI boom that we are living in, it's freaking me out. It reminds probably my parents how they would have felt when they saw the internet boom happen. But a feeling that I've always had, and a thing that I think we hear a lot about, is bots. I see actually that get thrown around as a pejorative online a lot when someone replies to a tweet or posts a comment that's really particularly nasty. Someone will in return call them a bot. And that's because there are a lot of bots online. It feels like we're surrounded by them. It feels like I'm being surrounded by fake engagement all the time. And so now there was a recent study that says there might be more than half of the internet traffic might be bots. And so did you read through this and say, yeah, this is accurate?
I did. It comes to us from a company called Imperva. They called it the Bad Bot Report. And you're right. It's over half of all internet traffic now comes from non-human sources. And what's even more sort of frightening about this is that 20% of that is what they call bad bots. In other words, they have malicious intent. They don't want to help us. They want to hurt us. And so, and what bothers me about the bot revolution is, in many cases, you can't tell that it isn't human. They try to pass themselves off as human. If you're on a website and there's a little box in the corner and you start chatting with the customer service bot, Harry is, you're having a chat with Harry. And then, as you start getting into the conversation, you realize that they're just being repetitive. And it kind of dawns on you slowly, this is not a human, this is software. And so I think the industry needs to do a better job, of making it more obvious, labeling it when you are in fact speaking with a bot, and having appropriate off ramps so that when you've reached the limits of the technology, there will always be an option to connect with a human in the loop. Because right now, too often there is no human in the loop, and you feel almost like you're just, like you said, you're in the middle of this sea of automation, and there's not a human to be seen. And quite frankly, that's a pretty frightening place to be.
Yeah, it's creepy, it's unsettling, and it's also not great for commerce, I don't think, because for the best example I have is anytime I've had an issue with Uber, I cannot reach a human being who works at Uber. And this is a massive company that people use all the time. But if I've had something go wrong with my ride, if I've had an inaccurate billing, the effort and the hoops I have to jump through to get an actual person, because I've got to go through all of these bots before I get to the final boss and then I'm ultimately sent over to a human. And only humans have really been able to solve any of the issues I've had. So on that front, I think as a customer service tool, it isn't very effective. And as you said, it should be very clearly labeled. And there should always be a person available because they kind of hit their limit very quickly. And also, I wonder about bots around engagement. We hear about engagement all the time in social media terms, and it is really used as a metric for commerce now. It's used as a metric for how much companies will spend, advertisers will spend. So if we're reading that over half of your internet traffic is non-human entities, then don't we think that's probably going to inflate the internet economy also? Like, doesn't it make it seem like it's a bigger marketplace than it is?
It does, because bots are interacting with bots, and companies are being charged for that interaction, even though there isn't a human behind the keyboard or behind the screen. And so the entire basis of the internet economy, sort of how we value these engagements, how we value the companies that provide these services, is being turned on its ear because now automation is driving it. But of course, we're still paying rates based on assuming that there's a human behind that keyboard. That is not the case. So we really do need a new way of valuing activity online as automation begins to sort of creep in and become more of a mainstream thing. And unfortunately, for example, if you're an advertiser, you're paying for ads, for impressions of ads. If over 50% of the traffic is automated or AI based, you're paying for this ad to be seen by bots, and that is a frightening thing, and that needs to change. And quite frankly, the entire economics of the internet need to be rebuilt. Because right now there's a lot of let's call it almost feels like the dot-com bubble of the late
Mhm.
90s, where it wasn't based on reality. Values were being driven into the stratosphere based on hype. And this is even more of a bubble than that bubble was. And it means we're headed for some kind of reckoning over the next few months or years.
I'd like to get your thoughts on how good deep fake videos have become when they are successfully scamming people out of their money.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Running a business comes with a lot of what ifs, but luckily there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku, and it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
Your above average intelligence brought you here. It deserves above average absurdity. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Welcome back to The Last Show with David Cooper. I am not David Cooper. I am Caitlin Green, and I am joined by Carmi Levy, who is here for another round of It's Time for Technology Time. And before the break, we were discussing bots. We're discussing fake engagement. And now I want to move over to the fakest of all things, deep fake videos. This is when you will see a video that looks like a public figure, that looks like a celebrity, or I'm assuming could look like a regular person too. But it is circulated wildly online, and they do tend to go around. This happened around the Super Bowl, with Taylor Swift. There were a bunch of really X-rated, deep fake videos and photos of her that started making headlines. I think that story was the first that a lot of people began to hear about this in terms of the mainstream. But now there is a man in Ohio who was scammed by an AI video of country singer Jelly Roll, and he was duped out of quite a bit of money because he thought that Jelly Roll wanted to give him $50,000. So I am cynical and would never believe this. I would never think that I was so lucky, but he successfully did. And he did that thanks to artificial intelligence.
Yeah, we are seeing a rapid spread in very high fidelity deepfake videos that even if you lean into the screen, it looks real. There aren't
Mm.
there, the lighting is bang on. The alignment, the synchronization between their lips and what they're saying is also perfect. The shadows, everything about it is just right. It looks perfect, so you wouldn't think, oh, it's a fake video.
Mhm.
And so in this case, just out of the blue, this guy's name is Ronnie Flint. He gets a message on Facebook that Jelly Roll wants to give him $50,000 for a new car. And at first he doesn't believe it, but then it says they send another message that claims to have Jelly Roll's official driver's license, and then he gets and then he gets a second video where they actually said his name. They said, "Hey, Ronnie Flint, Jelly Roll wants to give you a car." And at that point, you could kind of see something flips in his brain. He goes, "Oh, now I believe it because Jelly Roll knows my name." So what does he do? He sends some money. They ask him to send money in gift cards. They ask him to send money
Mhm.
for shipping. I mean, it wasn't a lot of money in the end. He's only out $70 in this case, but
Oh, okay, I
cases
think I thought it was more than that.
in this case, he got off lucky, but there are other cases where, and I've heard like one of my neighbors came to my house because she was ripped off for $600 in a
Oh
similar
my
scam,
gosh.
and then others that I've seen in thousands, tens of thousands, or more. So
Mhm.
the number is irrelevant. It could be significant. And finally, he was talking to a friend who said, this is a scam, and he stopped sending the money and he filed a
Mhm.
police report. But all of the cues are there, right? You get a random message on Facebook. Nobody gets random messages on Facebook saying you've
No.
just won a huge car. A video that has your name in it. Well, they used artificial intelligence, a video generator, to insert that name, and they probably did it to a lot of other victims because they can do this at scale. So the technology is incredibly sophisticated, but it's appealing to those emotions. I want to win that car. I want to get that money. Of course, they've got me hooked. Oh, I believe it's actually Jelly Roll. No, because if you had checked the source of where that actually came from, you would have realized that it didn't come from Jelly Roll's official account. It came on a we shouldn't trust anything that we get on social media because it's never
Mhm.
on the up and up. That was certainly the case here. And so every time I see cases like this, I kind of go, it's 2025. Where have you been living for the past number of years? Do you not recognize the tells, the obvious clues that should be setting off alarm bells, flashing red lights in your mind? This is a scam. Run away now. And yet people continue to be victimized because they ignore the same basic warnings again and again and again. And this guy is no different than countless other victims.
Well, and I like that he, in the beginning, he started out where we all are skeptical, but I think his desire to be chosen by one of his favorite artists because he was a fan of his Facebook page. And that's what I also want to say. That's what a lot of these scammers will do is that they go through the Facebook fan pages or the Instagram fan pages of public figures and they reach out to the people who follow them and they
Mhm.
use that as an in. So you do also have to be careful about how much information you share online, about how many of these groups you join, because those groups are then targeted by scammers who kind of know your interests and can form a little bit of a profile about you. And so, yeah, thankfully, this guy only got ripped off to the tune of $70. But I work on a podcast with Canadian musician Jan Arden, and we see people reach out to her fans all the time. Scammers will reach out to her Facebook groups. Then there will be accounts that constantly pop up impersonating her. I used to work on the Chum Morning Show in Toronto, and I worked with a Canadian, known public figure, Marilyn Dennis, and she had the same thing happen where people would impersonate her for skincare scams. Like this happens to big global artists, this happens to local artists. So really, just be so wary because the chances of a celebrity pushing out a specific kind of sketchy product, the chances of them trying to give you $50,000 via Facebook message for a car, really, really slim. So just assume like it's kind of a bleak outlook, but just maybe assume you're not that lucky.
Yeah. My grandfather taught me this lesson when I was a kid because if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. And I think that's just as true in this social media AI deepfake age as it was back then. There is
Mhm.
no free lunch. Celebrities aren't going to magically tap you on the shoulder and give you things. And the fact that they're using social media for this, I think that should be your other clue. We need to get better at recognizing these kinds of outreach for what they are. And also, like you suggested earlier, is reduce our digital footprint, because the more that we like, the more that we engage, the more that we post and share publicly on these public-facing platforms, the more fuel we give these scammers to target us with very personal, sort of focused messages that look terrifyingly real. The less we share, the less likely we are to be targeted in this way.
Okay, and this brings me to the last story that I'm dying to touch on with you, and that is about the Attorney General out of Louisiana who has sued Roblox. This is a platform, like an online gaming platform, where it's being referred to as a grooming place for children, where pedophiles go and they seek to engage with kids. Pretty well any sort of platform I've heard of, at least, that has a chat feature is really the perfect sort of ground for this behavior to proliferate, especially if companies aren't doing enough to stop it, which is exactly what their attorney general is alleging Roblox is guilty of. I feel like it's going to have to come down to lawmakers to really slap the hands of the tech companies for anything to change, because how is the individual supposed to hold a company like Meta or like Roblox accountable? They can simply just say, oh, we're updating things, we're making changes, but how am I ever going to know if they do that or not? Like, I do really think I'm not one for government involvement all the time, but I think when it comes to areas like this where the public has absolutely no oversight and no expertise, they have to do something.
Right, exactly. I mean, in that lawsuit, she called Roblox the perfect place for pedophiles, and saying that they essentially allow adults to target kids. They don't have the right protections in place, and it's putting kids at risk. 20% of their 82 million users are under the age of 9. So just imagine the risk here. All they care about is profit. They don't care about child safety. And you're right. And I'm not a believer in too much government engagement either. You can't legislate every single behavior, but you've got to have some kind of framework in place to hold these companies accountable and punish them hard in case they cross those lines, and make it sting, not just a slap on the wrist, but a penalty large enough to make them stand up and take notice and change the way they operate. Because right now they're operating in a vacuum. It's putting kids at risk, and it means that parents who just allow their kids to use these tools, like, and my kids used Roblox back in the day, and same thing. We watched them, but how would I know? How would I know that they're 100% safe 100% of the time? There's no way. We need better laws in place, and maybe it starts with a lawsuit like this, and it'll hopefully set a precedent for other jurisdictions to follow, not just for Roblox, but for every other platform where kids hang out online. I find it, rather rich that a right-minded individual engaging in, let's call it, justifiable vigilante behavior is then victimized by the very platform that allows this kind of behavior to happen in the first place. And so it just shows you how just bizarro backward this entire situation is, and just how much power companies like Roblox have accumulated in recent years. They're behaving in a way that, quite frankly, runs counter to the interests of the community, and it puts all of us in greater danger.
Thank you for distilling all of these very complex and sometimes horrifying stories perfectly. I enjoy your summary so much. I'm not a tech expert myself, but I certainly could use one in my day-to-day life. So thank you, tech expert Carmi Levy, for joining us once again.
Such a pleasure being with you, Caitlin. Thanks so much for having me.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Checking off the boxes on your to-do list is a great feeling. And when it comes to checking off coverage, a State Farm agent can help you choose an option that's right for you. Whether you prefer talking in person, on the phone, or using the award-winning app, it's nice knowing you have help finding coverage that best fits your needs. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
This is your invitation to a journey where relationships are dissected, science is simplified, and the news is hilariously twisted. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Welcome back to The Last Show. I'm Caitlin Green. David Cooper is on vacation, and I'm filling in. And you did it. You made it to hour 2 of the show. And even more importantly, you made it to Thursday night. The week is basically over. It always feels really cliche to be that person on the radio who's celebrating the work week being over, but I don't care, because I felt a lot of feelings in my day. And humans can agree that the feeling of a cold drink on a patio in the summer where you aren't checking your phone and you don't have to get up in the morning the next day is tops. It is a top tier feeling, maybe the king daddy topper of feelings. And to really drive that point home this hour, I'm going to talk to a writer for outlets like Business Insider and Wired and the Wall Street Journal for a segment that we've not so jokingly titled Work Sucks, where we're going to talk about a bunch of reasons why people are pretty clocked out of work right now. But first, let's find out what the term graysexual means and if it's about my grandmother. Very excited to be speaking to Samantha Bitty. She is a renowned sexual health and consent educator who I would love to talk to about this new term. There's always a new dating term, and this one is graysexual. And it is said to describe people who live in a gray area between wanting sex and not wanting sex. Samantha, thank you for joining. And did you not potentially describe every person who has young children?
And hey, look, I am a single, polyamorous, child-free. I'm untethered in every way, and I absolutely can identify with this notion of being kind of like, am I? Do I? What are like certain conditions really need to be met for me to be like, ooh, some of which is just like when I'm ovulating.
Yeah. What phase are we as women currently in?
Like, am I luteal? Like, there's so
Exactly.
yeah. I think this is a helpful term. I think any of the terms that we can identify with or to meaning make, just
Mhm.
sense making the human experience in unprecedented times. It's been unprecedented times for so long
I
too.
know.
And so I offer this not to diminish what people are identifying with. I have no idea what is going on in any other person's heart, mind, body, spirit, etc. Um, it could also be a symptom of burnout, like just the collective burnout.
Yeah, I think so too. I feel like when I read this, immediately it drew my attention because it felt like, okay, this could be a categorization of someone who feels this way all the time. And if it wasn't super transient, then maybe you would want to categorize yourself as one thing or another. But immediately, I also thought, after sitting in bed and scrolling my phone, doom scrolling, going through the news, then being served an ad for face cream, then being served a rundown of a restaurant, and then, oh no, here's war happening here, here's famine happening here. It doesn't really make you feel aroused. The state of the world does not feel conducive to a state of arousal right now. So perhaps we're all living in a bit of a gray sexual area. But if someone was to come to you and say, I'm feeling gray sexual lately. I think people are attractive. I find them nice to look at. I can acknowledge that they're hot, but I just can't take it much further beyond that. How do I get this going again? What might you say?
I think what's interesting to me is, so first of all, we're talking about the asexuality spectrum,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So someone who's asexual means that they don't experience sexual desire or attraction. It doesn't mean they don't
Mhm.
necessarily experience arousal, but they don't have any desire to have sex, or they often identify as someone who does not. It doesn't mean that they're aromantic or that they don't enjoy touch. Like every other spectrum, there's a lot of room for us to identify or have the experience of. The thing that I'm curious about is, what does it look like for us to give ourselves permission to just be where we're at? Right. And I think that this looks different for different people depending on how they've been socialized with gender or sexuality. Like, I think there are some identities that are seen as like, like I should be super sexual. I should be really horny. I should be like wanting to smash all the time. And when I'm not, all of a sudden there's something wrong with me. So what does it look like for us to kind of just examine some of the shame that comes
Mhm.
with sex and sexuality and be like, okay, so why do I feel so much tension when I'm not maybe performing or having an experience of? Um I also think it can help us highlight areas where we might need help or we might need support, or I think that there's a range.
Do you think that men would fall more commonly into that category? Do you think there's more of a societal expectation on men to just be ready to go at all times? And if they weren't, they might feel a little bit more shame around that than women?
I don't want to assign anything to anyone, but what I would say is that there is an entire industry, pharmaceutically and mechanically and surgically,
Mhm.
to contribute positively, quote unquote, positively to men's arousal.
Mhm.
I would also say that as someone who does like gender-based violence prevention and sexual violence prevention, that the consent of men to sex, or the
Mhm.
entitlement to men's bodies, is a huge gap in the ways that we think about consent and our practices in intimate relationship. So I think that there's room on all sides, but I do think that there is a societal expectation of men to be down.
Yeah, I would say so. I read this and thought that too. And I'm sort of an elder millennial, and so I grew up in the generation of, Maxim magazine and Cosmo and all of those guides to giving the best, insert whatever you want to imagine here. And I felt like when I read this, that was something that I grew up with, this idea that you're supposed to be in this relationship and very down for whatever all the time and just fired up all the time, even as a woman. And it did seem like it was even that step further for men. So maybe the graysexual terminology can just take us to a place of being able to sit on the couch and say we enjoy just holding each other or watching the same show or just being intimate on another level and taking some of the pressure off, because pressure feels to me like it would be something else that kind of kills your sex drive.
Yeah, and relate, fun fact about me, part of the reason I became a sex educator is because I too learned about sex from Cosmo, and
Yes.
even to a lesser extent, like 17. And this idea that there's 101 ways that I need to please my man every
Hmm.
month. And I'm like, I can barely count to 101.
Yeah.
I'm overwhelmed. And this comes back to this thing of like sex being an experience, intimacy being an experience as opposed to a performance. And
Hmm.
what does it look like for us to just, as I said, meet ourselves where we're at? And this is true whether we're partnered, right? Or if we're unpartnered. Like maybe I'm like I started this segment by saying like I'm single and I have nothing but time in the world to get, but I said this to you before we went on air, and I actually said this in the show. Look, the weight of the world makes the pussy dry sometimes. Sometimes I'm just grappling with things. Sometimes I just need a certain level of like availability and presence to feel sexual, and not everybody
Hmm.
has that freely. And so, some of it may be chicken and egg, but what I would, as my takeaway from this, my piece of advice would be to look at how do we get our desire and our capacity aligned? And those things can shift. And I think you said it perfectly. Like for some people, this is very transient. For
Hmm.
others, it's like, no, this is my house. Like this is where I
Hmm.
reside. And like that's okay.
Well, we might have to title this episode "The Weight of the World." Makes the
An
I love that.
autobiography. Okay. An
Yeah.
elder millennial autobiography. This is supposed to be my prime. I am inside, girl.
Great title for your memoir. Samantha Bitty, thank you so much for joining me today. I can't wait to speak to you again.
Thanks, Caitlin.
Thank you.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Are you ready to dairy-free your mind? This summer, melt away your dairy-free expectations with So Delicious dairy-free frozen desserts. Enjoy mind-blowing flavors like salted caramel cluster, chocolate cookies and cream, cookie dough, and more. For over 35 years, So Delicious has been cranking up the flavor with show-stopping products that are 100% dairy-free, certified vegan by Vegan Action, and are so unbelievably creamy, your taste buds will do a double take. Dairy-free your mind. Visit SoDeliciousDairyFree.com.
Brought broadcasting from the intersection of chaos and more chaos. The Last Show with David Cooper.
It's a rare morning where you wake up and agree with something a tech CEO says, but a new quote from the head of Amazon's cloud services, where he calls replacing junior staff with AI, quote, the dumbest thing he's ever heard, has accomplished the impossible and made people go, hey, maybe C-suite tech executives won't feed all of our careers into the AI wood chipper just to get their bonus. Or maybe I'm being naive. But here to discuss the latest workplace news headlines is freelance tech and work journalist whose work you may have come across in Wired or Business Insider. I am joined by Matt Alston. Matt, how are you?
Hi, how's it going?
Good. Do you feel good about this quote? I read this and thought, hey, it does sound really dumb to replace your talent pipeline with AI, but what do I know? I'm no C-suite tech executive.
No, you're right. I'm always reluctant. We should all always be reluctant to give our tech overlords any credit at all when they say something correct.
Yes.
I wrote a piece last year about how, Bezos and Musk hate PowerPoint decks. And I was like, God, I'm so annoyed that I agree with you guys.
I know.
We've seen over the past 2 years, 2-3 years of AI hype, this suggestion from Altman and all these big guys that AI is coming to replace our jobs, never their jobs, but our jobs, and quickly. And it almost as a suggestion to other CEOs to take the hint and start building these systems inside their companies of chat GPT based copywriters, Mid-Journey based designers, upskill your employees so that, in parentheses, you can eventually replace them. And I think that people are starting to turn on that idea gratefully, not just for labor and labor's power, but also for common sense. Like anytime a person says one of these things on the record is a victory for common sense.
Yeah, I agree. That's how I felt. And you hit the nail on the head. Whenever I do hear, a quote starts getting circulated or an interview starts getting circulated with one of these tech figures and they say, beware of this happening, or we should be doing one or the other thing, or our company's starting to do it. It does feel like a dog whistle for the other CEOs to make it okay. Like they open the door a little bit more and more. And I think it's making the average person increasingly uncomfortable. And that's why, again, I don't want to go around giving this guy some kind of award, but it at least felt like something that seemed true to me in my heart. And the other thing he pointed out was that your junior staff are the most likely to be conversant in your AI tools. They're the most likely to be familiar with them. They're probably going to be the earliest adopters. So if you actually do think that AI could increase productivity or improve the output of your company, why would you want to then shut down the people who are closest to it generationally?
Yeah, and not to get too existential about it, but as a parent, it's important you kind of see your child not just as a child, but as a temporary child. Like they will spend most of their lives as a person, like as an adult person. They're always a person, sorry. But your junior worker is just your 3 years from now associate, and that associate is just your 5 years from now senior, and your 5 years from now manager. If you just suddenly remove a strata of employees, you're half a generation away from having no other employees. And I think, there are some tech dystopian, techno-fascist, quote, overlords who would prefer this. They can manage a machine a lot better than they can manage labor. But you're right. And kind of we've learned over the past few years too, that all these Andreessen types are in group chats together. They're all communicating with each other. It sounds like lizard people's conspiracy nonsense, but there really are 300 or 400 very powerful men in Silicon Valley who are all on the same Slack channels.
Okay, this I didn't know.
They all, I'll send you but they all follow each other's, they all read the free press and they all read the same stuff and sort of chase each other's tails on these ideas. A return to office is another one. When you mentioned, when you mentioned this AI upskilling and deskilling, I just think of, these made up quiet quitting, and we'll get into the next one, quiet quitting and anti-remote work. These things there's no grand conspiracy, but it is like an influential person has an idea. That idea is probably very emotional about how they are losing power over their workers, or they have less power than they used to, or they want more power, or they want more money. And then these things sort of surface and everyone grabs them and says, being in the office is more productive. Is it? Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, I want to talk about the latest buzzword with you, and that is, of course, quiet cracking. Quiet cracking, and apparently it's costing companies $438 billion. But like the quiet quitting, like the dating terms ghosting, like all of these catchy little terms, I don't know who's coming up with them. I think it's a bunch of sort of people who are chained to computers for the New York Post. That's what I think is happening. But what is it reflective of? If you've seen a headline and wondered what the heck is quiet cracking, is it not just workplace burnout, or is it people who hate their jobs but hate them quietly? What is this?
I spoke with your colleague David about this last month about workplace engagement. Workplace engagement is a real way to measure not how much your employees like your job, but how the word engaged is correct, how likely they are to be productive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that figure feels scary and dangerous to HR and employers when it goes down. Figures come out and people point at it and say, what could be the cause of this? Or how could we describe this? And someone comes up with a phrase like quiet cracking, and you just kind of have to plainly look at it and say, okay, let's put the common sense hat on. What are they describing? They're describing someone not liking their job. That's all they're doing. And it's like 2025, politics are upside down and polarized, and you have this AI job eating machine coming for your work. Engagements dropped, I think, in the article that we both looked at this about this, from 23 to 21%. That's a major dip, and that's where that 400 million comes from. But does it mean that you and me are cracking at work, or does it just mean that it's the middle of summer and it's time to get our kids back to school and everyone's tired?
I always think it's like, what quarter are you living in? What time are you living in? How is everyone sort of doing emotionally as it pertains to news and current events? Spoiler alert, probably not very well. But the other thing that happens, I think, at a lot of these companies is that they talk about the quiet cracking or the quiet quitting or just, disengagement buzzwords. And I always think, you kind of have the culture you deserve. A lot of these leaders who talk about this, if they had to look at their decisions, and if they had to look at the statements they release, if they had to look at how they hire people, what their senior teams look like, I mean, honestly, if you don't like how your employees feel about their job, that's an environment you've created. The one that you're living in is the one that you deserve. And I don't know if they necessarily see themselves as architects of their own culture, or if they even lead from a place of appreciating company culture, less than they do just separate themselves from their workers and say, you're supposed to do what I say and you're supposed to be happy about it.
This is a very good point, because also phrases like quiet cracking, they're always worker oriented. What's wrong with them? What's wrong with the big group of people that want to unionize or want better benefits, or wish they could just leave work at 3:00 on a Friday in the summer because it's summer? Always with these kinds of AI's coming for your job but not mine. Quiet cracking is threatening the labor force, but not you never see these things pointed back, quote, up. I think tech and business journalism is fairly credulous, and everybody has to write articles every week and every day. So I don't blame Fortune or whomever for writing a piece or two about a new phenomenon. You gotta do your job. But I think there could be a little more reporters could be a little more canny at squinting their eyes and saying, look, who made this phrase up, and what are they attempting to describe, and who benefits or doesn't based on what this quote phenomenon is.
I am here with Matt Alston, and we are doing a little segment that I think, have you and David called this Work Sucks in the past?
We haven't called it that, no.
Ooh, okay. Well, maybe we could call it, let's call it Work Sucks. So for more Work Sucks, we are going to talk next about why the founder of Google's first generative AI team believes that degrees in law and medicine are going to be a waste of time. I think this is crazy, but we will get into it up next.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Class is now in session, and the UPS store is here to help you ace arriving on campus. Our certified packing experts can pack everything you need, from desktops to decor. Plus, when you pack and ship with us, you get our exclusive pack and ship guarantee. Your items arrive safe or your money back. Restrictions and limitations apply. To get a 20% off packing coupon and for full details, visit the upsstore.com/packing.
Smart, sharp, and slightly unhinged. Late Night's Fresh Perspective. The Last Show with David Cooper.
I'm Caitlin Green, filling in for David Cooper here on The Last Show. I am joined now by Matt Alston, a freelance tech and work journalist who's written for Wired and Business Insider. We are jokingly tongue-in-cheek calling this segment Work Sucks, but I think that is kind of a universal truth that many people feel when they work in a giant office. I mean, think about Office Space. Like, think about how formative that movie was and how much I feel like it perfectly synopsized how people really feel at their most cynical about going into work every single day, and especially about their managers. So I'm really happy that you're here to talk about work sucking with me, Matt.
Hi, how's it going?
That's great. So let's talk about the founder of Google's first generative AI team. This guy is making headlines right now because he has dared to suggest that degrees in law and medicine are soon going to be obsolete because those degrees, PhDs, take so long to complete that AI is going to catch up by the time students graduate. So he's basically saying higher education as we know it is on the verge of becoming obsolete. I couldn't disagree with this more. Again, I am just a member of the proletariat, so what do I know? But because you're an expert who writes about this all the time, do you find this as outrageous as I do?
It's obviously outrageous. I'm surprised because usually this level of credulity is reserved for the actually dumb, right?
Mm-hmm.
Someone who listens to, say, some conspiracy podcast that is very popular that we don't mention that says dinosaurs weren't real. You're like, yeah, okay. You don't have expertise, so you don't know that this expert is full of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm surprised that our tech execs are suddenly falling prey to this flattery and lack of expertise that ChatGPT, and these large language models have. There's a big piece recently, or a big podcast recently, where Travis Kalanick, the former disgraced Uber exec, talked about vibe coding and learning to teach himself physics with Grok and AI. And, physicists sort of were like, if you aren't an expert on physics and the ChatGPT sends you back physics information, you don't know that you learned correct information.
Yeah.
And if you think that lawyers and doctors are going to be replaced by a thing that you're not an expert at, let's wait to hear from the doctors and lawyers, right?
Thank you.
That's basically, like, AI is attempting to de-skill and remove large portions of our labor force. But just because a bad writer can become a marginally better writer by using an AI tool, which is true, doesn't mean that tool and skill is useful and has parallel uses across all industries. AI is not capable of generating new information. It's capable of making connections across large sets of data. And right now, the largest set of data that all our AI tools have is language. So it's very good at appearing naturalistic and real and, quote, human, but it doesn't know what it doesn't know. I think is kind of the way I come down on it.
Yeah, there's an emptiness to AI that I just feel like everyone can feel when they use it, or I would hope everyone can feel when they use it. Now, that may change with younger people kind of growing up with it, but certainly for myself, I'm not going to feel particularly good about living in a society where we don't think PhD, like the highest form of education, is invaluable. We think that's invaluable. Like, where we are telling people, don't even bother with this because instead you should just be leaving that up to AI. Like that, I don't really feel very good about that. And when when he was asked to sort of expand on this and say, well, okay, if you don't want young people to go pursue doctorates anymore, what do you think they should do? And he said, I encourage young people to focus on two things: the art of connecting deeply with others and the inner work of connecting with themselves. And this is where I also believe that a lot of the senior staff, like, they do think that they're gurus. They do probably get surrounded by so many yes men that nobody challenges this. And they just say stuff, and then it gets pushed out into the public. It starts trending. And I don't know that they necessarily feel that they're aware of how this is going to land with your average person, because they're not surrounded by your average people anymore. They wouldn't say stuff like this.
It's also works for me, not for thee. I would challenge this guy to back this up with information of how many non-graduates get hired entry level at Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Netflix. Those numbers aren't going to bear out. He's just sharing a personal anecdote and applying it to this ridiculous assumption that that instead of creating a flattery tool that can solve problems, we've created an expert dystopian future intelligence. And so far, that hasn't been borne out. Again, like, perhaps, I have a friend who strongly believes that radiologists and x-ray techs may actually have their jobs eliminated because perhaps you can teach a large model to sort and identify, abnormalities on MRIs and scans.
Like for images, yeah.
It may be, but at the end of the day, you still have to have someone's expertise to go in to train that model. And if you get rid of experts and get rid of the incentive to create new experts, you're going to run out of things to feed the machine very quickly. We've already talked about this before, but I liken it a little bit to a Ponzi scheme where eventually you run out of buyers at the bottom of the pyramid. And unfortunately, in this analogy, buyers are actually experts giving information and knowledge and creating new knowledge for the world. But if they're
not buying like diet powder. Unfortunately, they are actually experts.
Yeah, I'm sure the next 5 or 10 years we'll have some very strange, complicated legal battles over what legal stuff is allowed to be, whether AI has attorney-client privilege, whether you can sue a doctor for using AI to diagnose a thing when it should have been his expertise. But right now, I think, again, ask the doctors and the lawyers, not some guy.
I agree.
He may be an expert on building AI machines, and that's great.
But that's pretty well it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. I also think it's strange. It is strange to feel that education and the experience of getting a PhD would just be distilled down into, oh, well, is this going to equal you landing this exact job at this exact company for this exact dollar amount, when you're really kind of throwing out the entire experience of education as well. He's like, this is going to be a waste of your time because AI is going to catch up and education is expensive. But education is about more than just turning into like a cog in this workplace machine. I would say it's about making human connections, building expertise, knowing people in your field, and getting hands-on experience. And that's the kind of thing that you want from a doctor or a lawyer.
It's a deeply cynical and also ironic take to suggest that college is useless. What you should do is build emotional connections and learn about yourself. If I were to describe the main benefit of my civil engineering degree that I never use that I don't use as a writer now, and in my early 40s, it would be, I learned who I was, I made emotional connections, I made lifetime friends, and I went to some football games. It's not
like that's part of it.
It's not the point, but it's deeply cynical and probably just accurate to the industry he's in to look at degrees as a means to an end. It's just funny that he thinks that the other like means to an end that he could pursue is this like self-knowledge that is only gained by life experiences. Whether or not that's college, sure, but like one of the great benefits of a liberal education is that self-knowledge and pursuit of and teaching yourself to learn. I would suggest maybe he has he missed some of the point of whatever he did. I maybe yeah.
He did, and I now return to the feeling I get whenever I read through these articles of the tech CEOs probably being the easiest people to replace with AI because they say stuff that feels so inhuman already. And I'm like, you're halfway there. Okay, well, thank you for co-signing all of my beliefs, Matt. This was a pleasure to speak with you today. This has been so much fun. This has been Work Sucks. That's what we're going to call the segment with you from now on, with Matt Alston, freelance tech and work journalist. Catch him in Wired and Business Insider. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
At Blinds.com, it's not just about window treatments. It's about you, your style, your space, your way. Whether you DIY or want the pros to handle it all, you'll have the confidence of knowing it's done right. From free expert design help to our 100% satisfaction guarantee, everything we do is made to fit your life and your windows. Because at Blinds.com, the only thing we treat better than windows is you. Visit Blinds.com now for up to 40% off site-wide, plus a professional measure at no cost. Rules and restrictions apply.
The day is done. We're just getting started. The last show with David Cooper.
Welcome back to The Last Show. I am Caitlin Green, filling in for David Cooper, and I'm joined now by writer and opinion editor at the Toronto Star, Deborah Dundas, whose recent piece on the value of sending her daughter to summer camp may have just convinced me, a very anxious and indoorsy person, of the value of summer camp, which I never attended. And you were just saying before we started to record here that you never attended summer camp either.
I didn't. Summer camp was always seen as a luxury, I think. And I think also my mother wanted to keep us close to home. Though we never went to camp. I think there was a financial reason for that, which is part of the reason I wrote this piece, because it's to raise money or to let people know about camp and what the Star Fresh Air Fund can do for campers and getting kids to camp. We didn't know about that when I was a kid, though, so I never went to camp. So when my daughter, who was 6 when she started, really persistently saying, I want to go to camp, I want to go to camp, I thought, no, you're too young, maybe leave it another year. But 2 older friends of hers down the street, neighbors of ours, always talked about going to camp in the summer and how much they loved it and the things they did and what they learned. And they're very capable girls. And so I thought, well, send her for a week. The worst that can happen is they phone that we come and take her back.
Mm-hmm. And so at 6 years old, she gets on a bus and goes for a week to presumably Northern Ontario to go to an overnight camp. And I just can't imagine I would be so like your mom, where I would want to keep my 3-year-old son, who will one day be 6, closer to home. But when your article outlined all of the skills she learned, and that when you picked her up, she said, I cried every night, but not last night. Like she had sort of turned that corner, and that it teaches you, even if you do cry at night, that you can get up and have fun the next day, and you can do it, and you can build resilience, that's part of the experience. But the notion to any parent of their kid crying in a bed at night away from them is so heartbreaking and challenging. Like I feel like there's growth happening for both the child and the parent.
I think you're absolutely right. We could have driven her up, but there's also a coach that the campers can take. So we went to Yorkdale, which is where at the time they were gathered. And gosh, there were, hundreds of parents with cars and kids and camp counselors. It was organized chaos. And we thought, okay, well, this is good. And then the kids went on to the coaches. And my daughter got sat by the window and was looking out at us. And it was a great big coach window. And her tiny little 6-year-old head, I'll never forget how it looked. We still talk about that. And we all looked at each other and thought, what are we thinking? This is bonkers. But yeah, it was hard for us. And then when we went to pick her up, she allowed us to pick her up at the camp instead of taking the coach. So thank goodness for that. And she came, running across the lawn, barreling towards us. She leapt up and her arms and legs around me, and she was so happy to see me. But she was also, had a light tan and was full of life and just looked so happy and was so full of all the experiences that she had had. And you think, okay. And like you said, she had a good counselor, and that counselor would read to her at night, would help until she was ready to go to sleep. And that made a difference.
So what is the Fresh Air Fund that the Toronto Star has, and how does it help campers?
It's involved with, I think, 110 or something like that camps across the province. And what it does is it helps subsidize fees for day camps and for overnight camps
'Cause
for
it's expensive.
kids. It can be very expensive.
Yeah.
So I think lots and lots of camps do it, and are involved with it. So I think it's just a matter of talking to the camp about how to use it, and whether they are a part of the Fresh Air Fund camps. The one my daughter went to was, but nobody ever knows which campers are Fresh Air Fund campers or not. So there's
Yeah.
no sense, right? They're all doing the same thing, and they all have a level playing field, and they can all just be kids together.
Mhm. And when your daughter started, so she starts going to overnight camp at 6 years old.
Yep.
Did she stay at the same camp and then go as she got older? And did she
That's
become a
right.
camp counselor?
Yeah, that's what she did. And
Amazing.
when she there was COVID and there was a shutdown, so she was at another camp for sort of one of the COVID years that was having kids at camp still. So she did that. But she loved the camp, and there are a couple of things about it, as she got older, that her outlook on it changed. She loved the fact, that she just had all these activities and all these kids around, right? She's an only child. So there's someone to play with and someone to be with all the time. So there's that. And then she started learning new things, how to canoe, how to swim, how to do all of these things. And then she was able to work towards getting qualifications, Bronze Cross and, all these things. And so the camp experience grew with her, which I think was really great. So it gave her something at each stage of her, of her growing up. Another thing that was so great was that she said to me one time, Mom, I love that there are no mirrors at camp because I don't know
Oh.
what I look like. I don't care what I look like.
Yeah, because I guess you're obviously outside, and in the same way, the only thing I can compare it to is like when I go to a cottage and I
Yeah,
really don't care what I look like. It's just about something very, very different than your day-to-day life in the city is.
absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm.
And that's great. And also she's not worrying about the judgment of kids at school and cliques and this because that's, not supposed to be allowed at camp. I think it happens sometimes because, kids will be kids, but they
But
do
it's
their
different.
best.
And you
Yeah.
do get a whole new friend set because then you have your school friends and then you have your camp friends. Did you notice a change in her confidence level, in her outgoingness? Like as a parent, what did you see from before she went to camp and then after?
She was just more confident. That comes with growing as well, but also she learned to love the outdoors. She loves the outdoors. And in fact, no summer is complete if she can't spend some time in the forest and by the beach and just, what's it called? Forest bathing, I guess,
Yeah,
it's good for their physical health and for their mental health.
that's great.
Just one more plug for the Star Fresh Air
Yes,
Fund.
please tell us more about that. Yeah.
Yeah, go to thestar.com
Mhm.
on the interweb, and you'll see a link to you'll see a little piece
An
to
icon for Fresh
take
Air
you.
Fund.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
That would be it. Um, and you can click on that, and you can donate, and it'll tell you how you can send a check-in if you want to do it that way. So
Okay, great.
it sends, I think, more than 4,000 kids to camp.
Oh, wow. That's really significant. I mean, it is a cost prohibitive thing for a lot of people. So if you are listening and you are interested, please do check out the Fresh Air Fund online. And thank you so much, Deborah Dundas, for talking with me today. And if you want to go check out her piece, you can simply Google it. And for the podcast listeners, we will be including all this information in our show notes. Deborah, thank you so much again and have a great day.
Thank you, Caitlin. You too.
That's it. That's the last show. Well, not the last show ever. And not the last show for me. I'm Caitlin Green in for David Cooper while he's on vacation, and I will be back tomorrow. And I want to discuss EMDR. It's a really popular form of therapy, and fans of it say it's helped them combat everything from PTSD to stage fright. I'll also talk to a sleep expert about sleep hygiene, how to avoid disruptions around back to school, and if there's a Swiftie listening, or parents of Swifties, could 2026 finally be the year that we have a Taylor Swift halftime show? That's all coming up tomorrow. Don't forget, the last show is available as a podcast. Just head to www.lastshow.pizza, not .com, to listen and subscribe.
Hey moms, just a quick PSA to make back to school cool. Shop Belk for fresh finds from head to toe, classic yet comfy, and always, you got it, cool. Tees, jeans, kicks, packs, loaded with style for the entire fam from Levi's, Abercrombie Kids, Under Armour, Adidas. You get it. Always to game day to every day. For back to school cool, get back to Belk.